Okay, Hades Omega here. We're doing a Hades Omega how-to video. So today's how-to video topic is how to do a compression test on a KLX140. It could be any KLX140, KLX140, KLX140L, which is this model, or KLX140G. They all have the same engine. So supposedly they have all the same engine. So I would think you could do this on all those bikes. It's pretty much the same engine, just slightly different chassis type of thing. All right, so why would you want to check your engine compression? Well, to see, one is to check the state of your top end, basically, or how well your piston rings are sealing, your piston rings in the bore and the piston, like how everything is on the top end. It's a good way to check the health of the engine, to see how long it, how it's doing, if it needs a rebuild or not. So we're gonna do this first. So I'm gonna tear the engine down today, hopefully, and rebuild it. So it'll be good to get a baseline before we start tearing it down, just to see the state of the engine. And yeah, so it's a good indicator how worn out your engine is, basically. For that, we're gonna be using the Kawasaki KLX140 service manual. I have one, and a compression gauge, and like whatever sockets is required to take out the spark plug. It's a pretty simple deal, pretty simple task, but you do need the compression gauge. You can get those from and I'll go over all the tools and stuff in more depth later. But you can probably get one. Mine is from Harbor Freight. You can get one at any automotive store. They would have something like this. You would need to have the right adapter to screw into your head, though. So that's one of the things. So make sure you buy a compression gauge that has multiple adapters and stuff, because there's different size spark plugs for different engines. So all right, so let's get started. Okay, here's Mega here. So here I got the Kawasaki KLX140 and 140L manual, service manual. So under chapter 4, chapter 4-17 of the engine top end section, you'll find the cylinder compression measurement, and that's what we'll be measuring today. And it has the whole steps here, and we'll go step by step. So it says use a battery which is fully charged. That's important because we're going to use the starter to crank the engine. So if you can't crank the engine, then you can't create any compression. So I've also opened up the doors to my garage right now because we have to start the engine. The engine is cold right now. Thoroughly warm up the engine so that the engine oil between the piston and cylinder wall will help seal compression as it does during normal running. So there you go. That's the reason why you want it to warm up. It's also so the piston and everything, they expand to their normal operating, at normal operating temperature, everything is going to expand, It expands and contracts when it gets cold. So you want it to be, you want it to have a nice, good seal so you can get the best, your best compression number. And then stop the engine. So the first step we're gonna do is we're gonna warm up the engine, and then stop the engine, and then we're gonna pop the spark plug out, and then we're gonna attach the compression gauge, and then with the throttle fully open, turn the engine with the starter until the compression gauge stops rising, and then these are your specs right here, and then and then you have to install the spark plug. It's kind of weird. Okay, we'll go over everything in more detail. But what you're going to need for this task is... Okay, so these are the tools that you're going to need. You're going to need a compression gauge right here, compression tester gauge. You're going to need some kind of a ratchet. A ratchet with a socket. The socket is a 16 millimeter. At least for my bike it is. I don't know what kind of spark plugs you're running. I'm running the NGK one, so it takes a 16. It's kind of an odd metric size, but I'm sure that it's a SAE size probably. But 16 millimeter will do the trick. I have a small one and a large one, and it helps if you have like a small extension. It has to be a deep socket. If you don't really need a spark plug socket, because it's not like in a big deep valley. You know, it's fairly easy to get to. So here's the compression gauge. We'll take a look at it real quick. This is from this is made by a company named US General. They make parts that are sold by Harbor Freight. There it is. So this one has a quick disconnect system, kind of like a air compressor, and it lets you quickly connect different ends to it. And I think ours might be the one in the middle. I'm not sure, but we'll find out. Just make sure you choose the right one that fits in your cylinder head. And then there it is. So basically, you'll screw this into the head and then attach it to this, and then we'll crank it, and then it checks the compression. Pretty simple. How hard will this task be? For I would think if you on a scale of like a mechanic scale of 1 to like say 5, it's like a 2. It's you really don't need. It's really simple on this bike. This bike is a very simple bike. So that's what I'm gonna say. So it's not difficult at all. Everything is easy to get to on the bike. You don't have to take anything apart. Everything is easily accessible. So this is a really simple task, provided you have the right equipment, the gauge basically, and the sockets. The sockets, you have to be able to turn a wrench type of thing. All right, let's go. Okay, here we go. So first step is to warm up the engine. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna start the engine and we're gonna warm it up. Turn the fuel on, turn the ignition on, make sure it's on run, fire it up. Make sure you're in a well ventilated area. That's why I opened my garage. It probably would have been better if I had paced the bike the other direction too, but that's okay. So I'm gonna let it warm up for like 5-10 minutes or something. I'm just gonna let it idle. You can probably ride it around a little bit if you wanted, but I'm just gonna let it idle for like 5 or 10 minutes. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes. All right, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting. It's been about 10 minutes now. I shut the fuel off. I'm just waiting for the bike to die on its own, and then we'll get started with the fun. So you can see it's idling a little faster now because it's running out of fuel. There it goes. Okay, there we go. It ran out. All right, we'll probably let it cool down for like a few minutes so we don't get burned when we touch the parts. Okay, so we're gonna go do this by the book. Almost by the book. I'm gonna modify it a little bit. So we're at stop the engine. Next step is to remove the spark plug cap. This is the spark plug cap right here. Be very careful. It's probably gonna be pretty hot. Probably should wear some gloves. Try not to have it touch the exhaust because it may burn. And then remove the spark plug. Get your 16mm socket. I like to use 2 different wrenches. I like to use this one to loosen it, and then the other one to get it off a little quicker. So, okay. I don't suggest touching. In fact, I don't even need this. I would suggest you don't touch the spark plug either. It'll probably be real hot. So I'm just gonna take it out carefully like that. Now that one looks similar in my kit to this one right here, so we're gonna use that one. So the next thing I'm gonna do is that we're gonna so it says remove the spark plug with the spark plug wrench, attach the compression gauge and the adapter firmly into the spark plug hole. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Be careful not to cross thread it. Got it right on the first try. Okay, just try to get it reasonably tight, not too tight. Okay, and then so the way I'm going to modify this is we're going to take this spark plug, which is pretty hot. We're going to take the spark plug and we're going to put it in the cap, so the spark has somewhere to go, so you don't get burned. Okay, just put that somewhere away from the engine. Here, I'm going to put it right there. Should be fine. Just don't put it somewhere near your hands because you might shock yourself. Okay, now we're going to attach our compression gauge. Here we've got the compression gauge. We're going to attach it to the adapter. Make sure it's got a good connection. Okay. Okay, so I've changed the camera angle a little bit, so you can see the throttle grip. That's part of the instructions there. Okay, so with the throttle fully open, turn the engine with the starter motor until the compression gauge stops rising. The compression is the highest reading obtainable. So when that needle stops moving, that's your setting. So we're gonna open the throttle, and then I'm gonna fire it up. Okay, so I got about 230, just shy of 230, maybe like 228 or something. I'll go check in the gauge right now. Okay, so that's where it stopped. I want to say 20. Yeah, that's 220. That's what that is, 220. So I'm gonna give you a close-up of the needle as I do it. I'm gonna go do it again. So it's good to take a couple readings, take like 3, and then take the average, you know. Okay, so our first one is 220. And then you press this button here, it lets out all the air. Okay, here we go, test number 2. So I'm opening the throttle and I'm gonna crank it. It takes a while to get up there. Okay, so a little higher, slightly higher, just barely, like 2, maybe 2. Yeah, that's almost like 225 almost. So we'll say that's 220, let's say 224. Okay, we're gonna check it one more time. So now you see why you need to have a good battery. So now you got it's 225 now, so it got a little bit higher. So every time it wants to go up a little more. Okay, so we're right here with throttle fully open. This is the step that we just did. With the throttle fully open, turn the engine with the starter motor until the compression gauge stops rising. The compression is the highest reading obtainable, and the usable range is from, boy, it's pretty high, 119 to 184.9 psi. So boy, that's we've got a lot of compression. We've got 223 psi was the average, so there you go. So we got 220 on the first test, 224 on the second, and a 225 on the third test. Okay, so here's the results. We've got the compression tests. Test 1 was 220 psi. Test 2 is 224 psi. Test 3 is 225 psi. And so the average was like a 223 psi is what I calculated. So the spec is 119 to 185 psi. So we're over spec by 85, 15 plus 25. Yeah, we're way over spec. Okay. Let me see. So we got 223 minus 185. We're at 38 psi over the spec. So And there's a little diagnosis thing here. So here where cylinder compression is higher than the usable range, so that could mean there's carbon accumulation on top of the piston and in the head is suspected due to damaged valve stem or piston rings. Well, at any rate, so what it is there's carbon in the combustion chamber. It's making the combustion chamber smaller, and that makes your compression higher. The incorrect cylinder head gasket thickness. This means replace the gas. So that means I think the gasket is like too thin. It says replace the gasket with a standard one, or remove the carbon deposits and replace damaged parts if necessary. So anyway, we're going to be tearing the engine down, so we're going to have brand new parts. So supposedly the compression should be lower. It's either that, it's either one of these, or my gauge is reading too high. So I don't know how accurate that gauge is. A good thing to do would be to buy like 2 different compression testers and then compare them, compare the pressure, or somehow get it calibrated. So the last step is to install the spark plug, and then that's pretty much it. And I'll show you that real quick. Okay, so pretty simple. We'll disconnect the gauge. We'll let the air out. I thought the gauge is settled a little bit. So let's do one. I want to do one more test real quick. $225. Okay. So you're gonna take the gauge out, unscrew the adapter. Get your spark plug. So the reason I had you put it over there, just put it away from where your hands are. Don't touch it, or else you'll get a shock. Plus, it allows somewhere for the spark to go. It discharges it somewhere. I don't think it's good for the electrical system, the ignition system, to do that. There's nothing connected to it. Okay, so spark plug's in, and I'm gonna snug it real quick. I don't torque my spark plugs. I'll just do like a 1/8 turn when it bottoms out. Okay, spark plug back on, and there you go. So that is how to check the compression on your Kawasaki KLX140, 140L, and a 140G supposedly. If it's too high, you could have some carbon accumulation in there. If it's too low, you probably have like worn, we didn't go over too low, but if it's too low, you might have worn piston rings, like a bad valve seal, blown head gasket or something, a leaking head gasket. Maybe your valves aren't adjusted properly. It could be any number of things. So, but the alarming thing is if it's low, if the number is low, your engine is not healthy. You don't want it to be low. And if it's higher, the problem, if it's higher, you'll actually have more power. I'll tell you that. If it's higher, you'll have more power because you have more compression. It creates more heat, and that is a byproduct of the compression. It's going to create more heat. Your engine's going to get hotter, and it's going to run hotter, and it may overheat more easily. So that's why it's best to just kind of go with the stock compression. But 224 is pretty high. 180 or 190, I think, is like pretty much the standard. Like that's about like a 9 to 1 compression. I think a 220 is more like a 10 to 1 compression. So that's a little higher than like a normal compression for a car. And the KLX is designed to operate with regular gasoline, the lowest octane gasoline. It's not really a high performance machine, so you don't really need high octane. But should I be putting high octane? Probably, since compression is a little higher than normal. So yeah, I should probably be maybe I should put high octane in it if I feel that it's running too hot. But the bike runs great. Don't get me wrong. This bike is running great. So, all right. So that's how to check your compression on your KLX140. Hope you guys learned something. Now I'm gonna go tear this engine down. That's the reason why I did the compression test, is to check it before we tear it down. All right. Here's Miguel.